Okay, I'm actually going to give you guys another example. I think I'm going to walk through it a little bit faster. So the problem, this is actually number 27 in your textbook, but this wasn't assigned for homework, so that's why I'm using it as an extra example for you guys. So we need to get this into reduced row echelon form. So that's the zeros and the ones as our coefficients and no other variables have an answer except for that leading term that we see. Okay, so that's what we're starting with. Oops, it's a little cut off. There we go. So first step is I'm going to go ahead and write it into my augmented matrix. So without, in your guys' homework, you guys can just go straight to that. I had to write the problem down. That's 1, 9, 8, 0, 5, 8, 1, 35, 1, negative 4, negative 1, 17. And then close your brackets. So first steps first, I see that I have a leading 1, so that's taken care of. Now I can go ahead and work with the rest of my rows. So below that leading 1 is a 5. And with this 5, I need it to become a 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on that row 3 and row 2. So my row 1 I'm not going to change because that's set to where I need it to be right now. Oops, I should probably put that in there. And my row 3 I'm not going to change. But my row 2, I'm going to go ahead and do row negative 5 row 3 plus row 2, and that's going to become my negative row 2. If I do negative 5 row 3, that changes that to negative 5, 20, positive 5, and 17 times negative 5. Give me a second. And that is 85. That took me a little too long. Okay, and it's a negative 85. So I need to take this idea that's my new row 3 that I'm adding to row 2. That's going to give me a 0, a 28, a 6, and negative 50. So I can see that I actually can now scale my row 2. I can make it smaller. Everything I can cut down into half. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that just because smaller numbers will make your lives easier. So if you ever see that you can do it, do it. Don't hold back. 1, 9, 8, 0, 0. I'm going to cut it in half. So that's 14, 3, and negative 25. That gives me a little bit easier of numbers to work with. That bracket's funky. There we go. And then 1, negative 4, negative 1, and 17. I did nothing else but do R2 divided by 2. I guess that's how you could say it. I just cut it in half. And that's probably one thing that you wouldn't need to write, but I'm doing it just in case. So next up, I'm needing to make my row 3 now a 0. That first piece right here, I'll circle it. That needs to be a 0. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I'm going to take a row, not a B. I need to do row 3 minus row 1. So my row 1 and 2 are staying the same. And then row 3 minus row 1, so that's a 0, negative 13, negative 9, and 17. Whoops, that's really weird, 17. Okay, that's my next piece. Now, time to break down and reduce my row 2 down. If you see, if I take, let's see, negative 13 and add it to 14, that gives me 1. So I'm going to actually add row 2 and row 3 together to be my new row 2. Row 1's the same. Row 3 is the same. And then row 2 plus row 3, that gives me 0, 1, -6, and a -8. As you can see, we're getting there. These are longer problems. In your homework, you only have like 3. So that's why I'm trying to give you extra practice right now in the lesson, because you don't have that many, because they do take a long time, but I want to guide you through as many as I can. Okay, moving. I just had to make it smaller again so I can fit more steps in. We are getting there, you guys. These are long problems. So next up, we have to go ahead and reduce that row 3. The way we can reduce the row 3 is we need to multiply row 2 by 13 and add it to row 3, because that'll give us a 0. So if I multiply row 2 by 13, that gives me 0, 13, 78, -78, and 8 times 13, 104. So these are large numbers that we're working with, but we have no other choice. So that's going to be the piece I'm adding. As you can see, I'm kind of doing that scratch work on the side. Okay, my row 1, nothing's different. Row 1 is like the first thing you work with, and then the last thing you work with. It's the beginning and the end. Okay, so row 2 is not changing. 0, 1, -6, -8. And then row 3, we're going to add together this 13 row 2 plus that row 3. So that gives us 0, 0. What is that? -87. Looks like we're getting further from what we need, but we also get -87 there. So that's nice, because we can go ahead now and scale down that third row. So we're going to say row 3 divided by 87. Because then that's going to give us 0, 0, 1, and I guess we should say -87 divided by, that'll give us 1 and 1. Hey, that means we have the first thing done, and this is in row echelon form. Now we need to work back and do reduced row. So next up, we need to work up with our row 2. We need to take 6 row 3 plus row 2. That's going to make that -6 go away. So 1, 9, 8, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. And then in that row 2, that's going to be a 0, a 1, a 0, and then -2 is what it turns into. 2 more steps, you guys. I know it's getting smaller and smaller, but I'm trying to show all the work and take it slow. Then we need to focus on row 1. So row 2 and row 3 are done. Now row 1, what we need to do to it is we need to get this 9 to go away. So I'm going to say we're going to multiply by a -9 row 2 plus row 1. And there we go. For some reason that was smushing. Let's try that again. -9 row 2 plus row 1. So that gives me a 1, a 0, an 8, and then 18. -9 times -2 is +18 plus the 0. That's how I get that. Okay, guess what, guys? Last step. We're doing one last step with the top row. So 0, 1, 0, -2, that's row 2. 0, 0, 1, 1. It's row 3. And then our row 1, we are doing -8 row 3 plus row 1. Gives me, oops, not a 0. 1 is still there. That's a 0. This is now a 0. And then -8. That's 18 minus 8, so that's 10. And there's our solution. 10, -2, and 1. We're done. If you made it through this far, good work. If you didn't need to hear the whole thing and you just fast forward, that works too. You can look at the steps. After this, you guys are on your own on these ones.